First of all, warm welcome to my learned colleagues, Manoj, Nayak from SBI and Dhiraj, who's a Chief Information Security Officer at Tata AIG. A warm welcome to both of them. So I would like to start the session, with my favorite one sentence that it takes 20 years to build a reputation and it takes 20 seconds to lose it. And it's more so, when it comes to digital world today, eventually over the last, especially after COVID, when, physical currency has been a difficult mode of dealing with things. India has been moving to a lot of digitization. So digitization comes with eventually it offers you a lot of convenience. But then anything which comes with convenience, it offers a lot of challenges. And it comes with some amount of risk. So same is the case with the cybersecurity. And eventually, if you see, cybersecurity is, I would say, is one of the high risk for all the, more so in case of the financial institutions, for the banking sector, for the non-banking financial institutions, for the insurance companies. Because eventually all these organizations, deal with a lot of personal data of the customers. When I say personal data, it's a personal identifiable information, and there is a lot of obligation which comes along with it when you collect any personal data of the customers. So, especially with so many incidents which has happened in the past, we have seen that few have also been published in the media. Few have also not been listed in the media, but we have been quite aware that a lot of incidents where, customers, data being stolen. So cyber security is something which is a talk of the town, which is top of head for everyone. So, with my learned colleagues, I would like to pose one or two questions, for the benefit of audience. So Dhiraj, my first question to you. How to balance traditional risk management approaches with adaptive exposure management to stay ahead of cyber risk, especially in a highly data-driven environment? So, any thoughts around it?
Hello. Sorry. So, just my 2 cents to it is, majorly what we see here, in traditional cybersecurity approaches. Basically, we more focus on the traditional assessments, the traditional way of doing some information security programs and everything. Now, to balance that with the, ever-evolving cyber threats that we are seeing day in, day out, what you just mentioned a few minutes back, it's really little difficult, from the CISO perspective. But in order to do that, there are a few things that, one has to focus on. So the few could be, you have to continuously adapt in terms of what are the latest cyber threats that are coming in, or what are the latest cyber trends that are happening. And then you see how you can bridge the gap between your traditional approaches that are happening in an organization and, the adaptive cybersecurity frameworks which are coming up every day in, day out, how you can manage between these two. So that is one. Then there should be a continuous, you have to establish the continuous threat intelligence fees to your various solutions that you have in your organization which are deployed. So that will help you, understand what are the trends happening in the cyber world and then where you want to invest. So that is another aspect that you have to see. You can't just invest blindly into the traditional way of doing things. You just have to understand what are the new threats that are evolving in the cyber world and where you want to invest based on your organization, based on your sector, and so on and so forth. So I believe these are the few things that, we can focus on in order to balance between the adaptive risk management framework, the adaptive exposure management framework that we are talking about.
So, thank you, Dhiraj. These are very good insights, and I agree with the view that it's very important, first to identify the risk, which are the areas eventually, which are the areas where the risk lies, and making the right investment at the right time is what is important for the cybersecurity. And especially in today's scenario, when the things are moving with the speed of light, then the people who are stealing things are much more smarter than the people who are basically are the housekeepers. So that is why it becomes eventually very, very important. So hi Manoj, so my next thing to you, that what are the key data points insurers should focus on when measuring the effectiveness of the cyber resilience programs, and how can these metrics be used to refine adaptive exposures management practices?
So, Prashant, if you look at the, we need to understand what is adaptive risk management perspective from the cyber security perspective, and what is the traditional security. So, the traditional security, will not go away. Take it from me. So, if you look at the asset management, which is a very basic thing in the traditional security aspects, the asset management will not go away either from any of the standards, any of the frameworks, because if you don't know where our assets are lying and how many assets we have, then an organization cannot do a risk assessment and cannot manage the risk of those assets, which is a very basic thing. Second is the username password, which we call credentials, and we have seen lots of data breach, and we also tell you it's a credential theft. And as a general user or as a end user, if you keep your shoes on the end user shoes, you will feel how many passwords and how many usernames you will remember. So the new technology has come, passwordless authentication. But whether every organization has the ability to go towards a passwordless authentication, it is no. Currently it is no. So it will follow. It will be a systematic approach, and one by one organizations will go towards it, because it requires also investment. It requires that all your existing applications, including the legacy applications and legacy systems, are supporting this passwordless authentication. It is just one of the technology which I gave example, probably all of us can understand. And this what the adaptive risk management approach talks about it. It's one of the cyber security strategy where you need to identify the risks and mitigate the risk before the risk is exploited, or before the risk is exploited and the benefit has been taken by the hacker, and it creates a havoc in the industry by putting in the newspapers or in the social media posts, which we have been seeing during last 3-4 months. So adaptive risk management practice is nothing but continuously assess your risk from an organization perspective and do a vulnerability prioritizations. So while you continuously assess, you will find lots of vulnerabilities. So whether all the vulnerabilities has to be mitigated, and if it has to be mitigated within what is the amount of duration during which the vulnerabilities has to be mitigated, which is the most important thing. So the vulnerability prioritization has come into picture. And then the third component.
So Manoj, sorry, I'm interrupting you in between. If I put in a nutshell, you talked about asset management. You talked about record keeping and housekeeping of user IDs and password. You mentioned about finding out, prioritizing your vulnerabilities. So if you could elaborate more on the asset management. If we talk about the asset management, what all does it cover, and how does somebody, when it comes to cybersecurity, takes care of the asset management?
No, if you look at asset management, is nothing. Almost everybody knows that we follow a Excel sheet. We find out what are the applications which are there in the organizations, what are the servers there in the organizations, what are the network devices. There are so many network devices. What are the security technologies are there? And now the systems has also been developed, and various systems are available where it can discover the assets. Now it can, if you run through the entire organizations, it will discover the assets. But if the asset is having a IP address, which we call digital asset, then those systems has the capability to discover the asset. Sometimes it has lots of challenges also. It is not a very free flow. Like network devices cannot be discovered. So before the Prashant, I am coming again to the vulnerability precision. Once we identify the assets, and we know where the assets are there from the asset discovery method or from our traditional Excel sheet, we run a vulnerability scan to find out the vulnerabilities. Then the vulnerability prioritization. In the vulnerability prioritization, the new methodology has come into the market where we call the exploit prediction scoring system. In a traditional approach, we use common vulnerability scoring system. In the adaptive practice, we use exploit predict scoring system, where it gives the probability of the vulnerability that can be exploited by a hacker. So based on that probability, and also it is a very scientific method which is used by organizations called FIRST, which is a forum for the incident response and security teams, and it uses CISA, KEV from the US, and the Google. It uses some Google's scoring method. It uses trend micro scoring method, and gives everybody a probability. So based on the probability, though I may identify 5,000 vulnerabilities, but only 100 vulnerabilities are prone to exploitation. So in the next 2 days, it has to be, as a CISO's team or as a IT team, it should be the focus that I need to patch those 100 vulnerabilities in a span of 1 day or 2 days. Though regulator says that high risk vulnerability has to be closed in a period of 1 month, but we need to go beyond what regulator says. It is a baseline. The regulatory requirements, we need to keep in mind that regulatory requirements are the baseline. We need to think with the exploitation perspectives. The way the security incidents are happening, the way the data breach are happening, if something can be exploited, then we need to target that. And if you look at the metrics, we need to find out mean time to detect a vulnerability, mean time to close that vulnerability, mean time to detect a incident, mean time to close a incident. And the closure is not only from the organization perspective, it is also from the third party perspective. So lots of organizations are engaging the third parties and partners. So how much time the partner or the third party is taking to close a vulnerability or to respond to an incident, that also matters.
Thank you, Manoj. Very valuable insight. So how frequently you carry out the vulnerability testing? I mean, just to understand, obviously, prioritizing is something which is very important. And after that, suppose there is something which is very high priority for you, and how frequently you carry out the...
See, if you look at the regulatory guidelines, regulator says that you should do vulnerability assessment once in a year.
Right.
But my personal feeling is it is not enough the way vulnerabilities are getting discovered. And there is a research paper that by the year 2026, around 30,000 vulnerabilities will be detected every month. So if you look at these 30,000 vulnerabilities and if you do vulnerability assessment once in a year, then you will end up finding the 360,000 vulnerabilities, and the closure will take longer time. So the vulnerability assessment should be more in a frequent manner, at least on a half-yearly basis or quarterly basis, so that your mitigation approach will be faster and you will not be exposed to the exploitation of the vulnerability.
And it also depends on the size and complexity of your business. Absolutely. So, Dhiraj, if you could share your thoughts around, as an insurer, we adopt new technologies like artificial intelligence and blockchain. How can these technologies support adaptive exposure management frameworks to address evolving cyber risk? That's number one. And how can insurer leverage data-driven insights to predict potential cyber exposure in real time?
So firstly, before going to that question, I would just like to continue where Manoj has left. So I hope that's okay.
Yeah,
little time. So what Manoj has spoken about, the traditional way of managing things. We took an example of asset management, which I believe not today, tomorrow, or day after. These things will be automated. All the operational part, wherein you identifying the system. We already started. Believe the adoption of the technology in our region is a little slow, but it's already started. Something like CMDB and probably the next versions of CMDB. All these system, will automate, and you have to focus on, as you rightly mentioned, about the prioritizing the risk. where your risk lies. So that's something that we have to key in. Coming back to your question is on, I believe, the AI and IoT. How I believe AI. Recently we just getting into the news about a new AI platform that is coming in. So AI is evolving that fast. The people are coming with the AI technologies. Even if tomorrow there would be someone new that will come up with the better AI technology that we are using today. So I believe in cybersecurity space, how we can leverage AI is basically using them for better, detection in terms of the anomalies that we identify, probably in the SIM or any such solution wherein you ingest a lot of logs. Probably it could be your identity governance, or any such wherein you have some behavioral analytics or machine learning data coming into your system, and then you can use that and have a layer of AI that will give you fruitful insight basis the use cases that as a CISO or as a risk function that you want to define. So that's how you can leverage the AI. That's my take on the AI from cybersecurity space. I believe IoT is a different ball game because the reason it is it works on a different network. The way, I mean, of course, it works on the internet, but at the same time, the way the things are, it's not a similar technologies. You can't have a same technologies like to very typical example is like we work majorly on Windows, Linux, or Mac, the Macs, on our endpoints. In IoT space, the operating system will change for every other products that is in the manufacturing unit. So it's not a single, or it's not a traditional way in way the things are happening in IoT. So you have to be more focused about what are the various technologies or the protocols that you use, in IoT space, and how do you protect those. Probably the architecturing, the overall architecturing of your IoT infrastructure, because everybody is communicating to each other.
Right.
So how securely you architect that would be the key, I believe. So that's my views.
Really good insight. So my last, take on basically, as you know that, Digital Data Protection Act is something which has always been, on the high. People have been waiting for its rules. And August 2023 was when the act came in. It's been now almost 1.5 year. Everybody has been waiting for rules to get notified so that, formally the act can be rolled out for the Indian space, because globally we have GDPR. India is somewhere it has been not having that strengthened kind of legislation when it comes to Digital Data Protection Act. So now, since the draft rules have come in, and 18 February happens to be the date which ministry talks about getting the comments from the industry, and getting and coming up with the formal final rules. So what is your take in terms of what all readiness which you would suggest for the insurance space to kickstart at this moment, or they should formally wait for because I think what I understand is we would be nothing but a significant data fiduciary, right? I mean, the kind of data we collect, we would not fall short of a significant data fiduciary. So from that perspective, as a CISO, I mean, if you can take this question, what all readiness you would expect insurer or
So Prashant, as you rightly said, most of the insurance companies will fall under the significant data fiduciary, and I'm sure most of the leading insurance companies would have started the preparation. So, like the Minister of IT recently said that don't wait for the rules to turn. You work on the laws also. The laws also give lots of things to work to start the work. So one is the data privacy impact assessment. Now before that you need to do a gap assessment with respect to the law also. So leave it the rules. Rules will bring some work. But and if you look at the gap assessment, probably no one would have done the privacy impact assessment that has to be done. The consent management, which is a critical thing for all the insurance companies.
Right.
So we have to build the consent management, and on the systems also. If you look at from the how most of the systems are also handling the personal data of the customers and the third parties.
Right.
We have some like security scorecard, bit set security risk ratings, as you were asking.
Yeah.
So these are the AI driven tools. Also, we have to rely more and more on these kind of tools. And also, as Dhiraj has told that lots of security operations center has also come up with the AI and machine learning enabled detection methodologies. So those are the tools we need to use apart from, on the process side, doing the gap assessment, looking at the consent management, and how do we manage the consent and other things. So those are the things we can start, and I am sure that most of the companies have started.
So yeah, please, Dhiraj.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly add a few points. One is, of course, the third party risk is, I believe, in this space would be the major contributor. Where you have to put more focus on, because I believe most of the organization might have suffered something called as shadow IT. Wherein the business team or any other team, they just take some services and IT or CISO function are not aware about, wherein the data exchange are happening, and as a risk or a validation or a check compliance function, we have no clue about what is happening. So that's something where one has to put more focus on. So you can have, as we are talking about bit side, so but we also have to have something called as third party risk scoring also, that how your third party is doing, wherein you're doing, being an insurance sector, you are majorly reliance have on the third parties. So the data exchange that are happening with third parties, how good they are, how good their security posture is. So I believe these are the few things one has to take care of.
Excellent. A big thanks to both my learned colleagues, Dhiraj, Manoj, for sharing their very good insights, and I think they've been really, really helpful to lastly talk about DPDP, which I think nobody in the audience is disinterested. Everybody is more than interested. So thank you for doing that.